They challng. The great hall of Orion Prime was packed. Giant banners of the alien empire hung from the ceiling. Glowing crystals lit up the chamber with cold blue light. Alien nobles sat in tall seats, wearing shining armor and long capes. They all looked proud, serious, and powerful. In the middle of the hall stood Caliph, the daughter of General Xor. She was tall, strong, with purple skin and silver eyes that shined like stars. She was one of the best warriors of her planet, trained from birth to fight. Today, she was not here to fight. Today, she was here to speak. She stepped forward, her voice loud and clear. "Humans," she said, "are weak. They cry. They break. They run from fear. They have no honor, no strength, no purpose." The crowd cheered. Her words made them proud. They believed the same. After all, humans had only recently been allowed into the Galactic Council. Most aliens still saw them as inferior. Caliph continued, raising her hand. "We, the Velinari, were born to lead. We fight with pride. We do not beg. We do not bend." Again, loud cheers. Fists raised in the air. Chants echoed through the hall. But in the corner of the room, standing silently among the diplomats, was a human. His name was Ryan Hale. He wore no armor, no medal, just a simple dark jacket. His hands were behind his back, his face calm. He didn't clap. He didn't cheer. He just watched. Caliph saw him. For a moment, their eyes met, and something strange happened. Ryan didn't look angry. He didn't look scared. He just looked at her like he saw right through her, like he understood her completely in one glance. His eyes held confidence, not pride, not arrogance, just something still and powerful. Caliph blinked. Just for a second, her voice stopped. The hall became quiet. Her chest felt tight. Why? She quickly looked away and said, "They do not belong here." But the moment had already left a mark. The Velinari Emperor stood up. "Princess Caliph speaks the truth," he said. "But words are not enough. The council wants proof." He turned toward the human group. "Send your strongest," the Emperor said. "We shall test them in the gauntlet." Caliph smiled. The gauntlet was a dangerous challenge, a place where many had failed. She wanted to see the human break. She wanted to watch him fail like all the rest. But Ryan, he just nodded once. The next morning, Ryan stood at the gate of the gauntlet. Metal walls rose high around him. Drones flew above, watching every move. Traps, puzzles, and combat trials waited inside. Alien warriors had fallen here. Even Velinari had barely passed. Caliph watched from the viewing deck above. "Let's see what your calm eyes can do now," she whispered. The siren sounded. Ryan walked inside. First, fire traps. He ducked under the heat, timing each step. Calm. Controlled. Then came blade drones, fast, sharp, deadly. He didn't panic. He used one drone's movement to crash it into another. Smart. Quiet. He reached the puzzle gate. Velinari warriors often used brute force. Ryan. He studied it, pressed 3 panels, and the door opened. Caliph leaned forward. How? Then came the final test. The beast chamber. A 10-foot creature with claws and fangs roared at Ryan. Caliph expected fear, a flinch, maybe a scream. But Ryan just stepped to the side, waited, and used the beast's own charge to make it crash into the wall. It didn't die, but it backed away, confused, almost afraid. When Ryan stepped out of the gate, the crowd was silent. Caliph didn't speak. The Emperor stood, clapped once, then said, "He passed." Slowly, others clapped too. Even Velinari nobles, unsure at first, joined in. But Caliph didn't clap. She just stared at Ryan. He looked up at her. Again, that look. Still, strong, calm. And once again, her heart skipped a beat. "Why can't I shake that feeling?" she whispered. He didn't even say a word, but something about him. It scares me. And for the first time in her life, Khaleth felt unsure. Not of him, but of herself. Trial of fire. The storm over Orion Prime had not stopped since morning. Black clouds covered the twin suns, and thunder rumbled like a sleeping beast. It felt like even the sky was waiting for something to happen. Deep inside the Velinary training complex, alarms buzzed. Gates opened. Warriors gathered. Today was the start of the trial of fire. This wasn't just a challenge. It was a tradition. Ancient, brutal, created to test those who wanted to stand among the galaxy's strongest. It had no rules except one: survive. Khaleth stood on a high balcony, watching the chosen ones enter the first sector. Ryan Hale was among them. He wore the same plain clothes, no armor, no special gear, just dark pants, a long-sleeved shirt, and a calm face. The other competitors wore high-tech suits and heavy weapons. Velinary, Korlax, even a six-armed warrior from Zyra Prime, all ready to crush anyone in their way. He's going to be the first to fall, someone whispered behind Khaleth. She didn't answer. But she wasn't so sure anymore. The gates shut behind them with a loud clang. A voice echoed in the arena. Level 1. The burned corridor. The walls lit up orange. Flames burst from the sides. The ground turned red-hot. Alien warriors sprinted ahead, shouting. One slipped, screamed, and vanished under fire. Ryan didn't rush. He walked. Slowly. He studied the flames, timed them. Then he moved. His steps were quick but clean, every motion precise. He ducked, rolled, jumped across a narrow ledge, and made it to the other side without a scratch. Khaleth blinked. How is he? Next level opened. Blade Zone. Metal arms came from the walls, each holding a spinning blade. The floor shifted every few seconds. Nothing stayed still. One Zyra warrior tried to run through. He made it halfway before a blade caught his side. He fell, roaring in pain. Ryan didn't move yet. He stood, breathing slowly. Then he stepped forward. Left. Duck. Slide. Freeze. Spin. Jump. He danced between death like he had done this before. No fear. No sound. Just silence and skill. He crossed the zone without a cut. Others were bleeding, panting. He was calm. Khaleth leaned on the railing, her fingers tight around the edge. What are you? She whispered. Third level. Mind maze. This was different. There were no traps, no blades, no beasts. Just a door that needed to be opened, and hundreds of wrong paths to choose from. Alien warriors tried to brute force their way. Some banged on the walls. Others used scanners. Nothing worked. One Velinary screamed in frustration and broke his own hand punching a stone. Ryan sat down. He closed his eyes. Everyone thought he had given up. But after 5 minutes, he stood, walked to a blank wall, pressed 3 spots in a pattern, and the wall dissolved. The real path. He had solved the maze faster than any Velinary in recorded history. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Alien leaders sat forward in their seats. Someone said, "He's not just strong. He's dangerous." Khaleth didn't speak. She couldn't. Her heart was beating faster. This human, he was breaking everything she believed in. Humans were supposed to fail, to fall apart. But Ryan was doing the opposite. And worst of all, he wasn't even trying to impress anyone. He wasn't cocky, wasn't proud, wasn't trying to win anyone's approval. He was just being himself, and that was more terrifying than any weapon. The final level approached, the beast trial. Giant gates opened. A roar shook the entire arena. Out stepped a creature of claws, horns, and armor like skin, 10 feet tall, glowing red eyes. It had killed many champions in past trials. Contestants froze. Khaleth watched Ryan closely. This would be it, she thought. He has no weapon. He can't win this. The beast roared again and charged toward Ryan. Everyone expected him to dodge or run. But Ryan did something else. He walked toward the beast. Slowly, calmly. His eyes locked on the creature. Kaleth stood up. "What are you doing?" she whispered. The beast slowed down. Just a little. Then it growled. But its steps faltered. Ryan didn't break eye contact. And then, the impossible happened. The beast stopped. It sniffed the air, growled softly, circled him once, then backed away. It didn't attack. It bowed its head. Gasps filled the arena. A Velinari general stood. "What trick is this?" "It's not a trick," Kaleth whispered. "Then what?" The general snapped. She stared at Ryan, who now walked past the beast, untouched, and stepped through the final gate. "It's the look," she said. "He has the eyes of someone who isn't afraid to die." And somehow, the beast knew. The trial ended. Sirens went off. The voice returned. "The human passes all trials. Highest marks recorded. Trial complete." The gates opened. Ryan stood still as the alien crowd stared down at him. No words, no emotion, just that calm look. He looked up, right at Kaleth. Their eyes met again. But this time, she looked away first. Her thoughts spun. He didn't fight the beast. He didn't show off. He just knew something. Something deeper. Something I don't understand. And in her chest, for the first time in her life, was a spark of fear. Not of him, but of everything she thought she knew. Why do you break? Rain fell softly over the Velinari sky dome. It wasn't real rain, just artificial weather made by their sky towers. But it still smelled like wet stone and cold air. Kaleth stood alone on a wide balcony, staring into the mist. Her armor was off. Her hair was unbraided. Her thoughts were a storm inside her mind. "He passed the trial of fire," she whispered to herself, "but he didn't even fight." Every champion before had either died or barely survived. And yet, Ryan Hale had walked through it like it was just a morning walk. No roars, no war cries, no pain. He had stared into a beast's eyes, and it had stepped back. Kaleth clenched her fists. Why? Why won't he break like the others? In the following days, Ryan was placed under observation. Not because he was a prisoner, but because the Velinari Council didn't know what else to do with him. He had passed every challenge, but they didn't trust him. They didn't understand him. And what they didn't understand, they feared. Kaleth volunteered to study him. But in truth, she just wanted answers. She entered the chamber where he stayed. It was a clean, simple room. Walls of soft light, a single bed, a table. No chains, no guards. Ryan sat at the table, sipping from a cup of warm broth. He looked up when she entered, but didn't speak. His eyes met hers, calm, focused. Kaleth hated that look, not because it was arrogant, but because it made her feel seen. "Why don't you speak much?" she asked, folding her arms. Ryan shrugged. "No one's asking real questions." Kaleth blinked. "Fine. Here's a real question. Why didn't you kill the beast?" Ryan looked down at his cup. "Because it didn't want to fight. It was designed to kill. So are Velinari soldiers, but not all of them want to." Her face twitched. "You think you understand us?" Ryan's eyes lifted. "No, but I'm trying." "Are you?" She didn't know how to reply. Over the next 3 days, Kaleth visited again and again. Every time, she tried something new. On day 1, she brought 3 Velinari warriors to insult him, to mock his weakness, his species, his past. Ryan didn't react. He just listened. On day 2, she tried psychological games, changed the room's light patterns, shifted the time, made him feel alone. Still, no reaction. On day 3, she told him lies. "Earth has fallen," she said. "Your people betrayed you. They called you useless. He simply said, even if that's true, it doesn't change who I am. Who says things like that? She thought. Caleth began to feel something she had never felt before. Frustration. She had defeated enemies twice her size, passed military mind tests at age 11, stood tall among council generals. But this one quiet human was her first real challenge. On the 5th day, she tried something different. Truth. She sat down across from him. No games. No pride. I hated your kind, she said softly. Since I was a child. Ryan looked at her, waited. My father told me humans were soft, that they cry too easily, that they give up. Maybe some do, Ryan said, but not all. She nodded. I believed him. I trained my whole life to be strong, so no one could ever say I was weak. But when I looked at you that day, during the speech, she stopped. Ryan leaned forward slightly. What did you see? Caleth's voice was quiet. You didn't flinch. You didn't bow. You didn't speak. And somehow, that made everyone else in the room feel smaller. Silence hung between them. Rain pattered against the outer glass. Finally, Ryan said, I don't want to make anyone feel small. Then what do you want? He looked at her with the same eyes that haunted her dreams. I just want to understand why we always have to fight. That night, Caleth couldn't sleep. She sat in her room, surrounded by trophies of battles past. 100 victories, 1,000 wounds. Yet none of them made her feel what she was feeling now. Confusion. Respect. Maybe even. No, she shook her head. Not that. The next morning, alarms rang across the base. A security breach. Caleth rushed to the command center. A Velinari guard looked shaken. One of the council's spy units activated a memory drone inside the human's chamber. It tried to scan his thoughts. What? Caleth snapped. That's forbidden. They wanted to know what he was hiding. She turned to the screen. Inside the chamber, the memory drone was sparking. Damage. Ryan stood over it, calm as always. When the camera zoomed in, they saw it clearly. He hadn't attacked the drone. He had made it destroy itself. Caleth's heart skipped. How? Someone asked. His mind is trained, the tech whispered, or maybe just too quiet to read. Caleth walked into the chamber again that evening. Ryan looked up, the faintest trace of a smile in his eyes. They sent a spy, he said. She nodded. I didn't authorize it. I know. You knew they would. Maybe. Why didn't you stop them? Ryan took a breath. Because sometimes you have to let people try to hurt you, to show them it doesn't work. Caleth sat down. You're not what I expected. Neither are you, he replied. She looked at his hands, calm, steady. Why won't you break, Ryan Hale? He smiled, finally. Because I've already been broken. Long ago. And when you put the pieces back together, they're never the same. They're stronger. Caleth looked away. But in her chest, something shifted. A wall cracked. Just a little. And she wasn't sure if she wanted to fix it. The turning point. Outside the Velinari base, the stars blinked in silence. But inside, chaos moved. The Galactic Council had just intercepted a distress signal, one from the old ruins of Sarn 17, a long-forgotten moon filled with broken tech, dead soldiers, and old wars that never truly ended. The signal wasn't random. It was a trap. But it still had to be checked. And for some reason, the Velinari Council decided Ryan Hale and Caleth would go together. Test them, whispered one of the generals. See what the human does when fire surrounds him. Caleth stood beside Ryan at the launch bay. She was fully armored now, sleek silver plates, glowing chest symbol, twin blades on her back. Her helmet hung at her side. Ryan wore a simple utility suit, light armor, light pack. No helmet, no weapon, just that same calm face. You don't believe in carrying weapons? She asked. I believe in not needing them, he replied. Caleth rolled her eyes. That's either brave or foolish. Ryan didn't argue. The shuttle doors opened. They stepped inside. The mission had begun. The journey to Xarn 17 was quiet. Too quiet. Khaleth sat across from Ryan in the small transport room, arms folded. She watched him through the dim light as he rested his head against the wall, eyes half closed. "You're not curious about the mission?" she asked. "I already know it's a trap," he said softly. She narrowed her eyes. "How?" He shrugged. "Because if it wasn't, they wouldn't have sent us." She stared at him. The confidence in his voice wasn't arrogance. It was just unshakable truth. For a moment, she wondered what it would feel like to be that sure of yourself. Xarn 17 was a graveyard moon. Rusted chips buried in the sand. Broken metal towers leaning sideways. The air smelled of ash and old smoke. No signs of life. But too much silence. Khaleth stepped off the ramp, eyes scanning the horizon. "We land. We scan. We leave. Stay close." Ryan followed quietly. They moved together through the broken structures. Khaleth in front, blades ready. Ryan behind, watching everything. After 20 minutes, they reached a central tower. The distress signal was coming from inside. "I'll go in first," she said. "No," Ryan replied. "We go together." Khaleth frowned. "Are you giving me orders now, human?" "No," he said calmly. "I just know what happens when people go in alone." There was something in his voice. Not fear. Memory. They entered side by side. The tower's inside was worse than outside. Wires hung like vines. The floor cracked under their boots. Then the door slammed behind them. Trapped. Khaleth spun. "I knew it." A voice echoed from above. Alien. Cold. Familiar. "Thank you for walking into our arms, Princess." Khaleth froze. "That's General Vorak," she whispered. "He went rogue 5 years ago. Vanished." "He didn't vanish," Ryan said quietly. He was waiting. Figures stepped out of the shadows. Vilnar rebels. Armored. Armed. Angry. One of them pointed. "Take the human alive. Kill the rest." Blasters fired. Khaleth moved fast. Blades out. Dodging. Striking. Spinning. She was a storm. Ryan didn't fight like her. He moved with purpose. Disarming. Redirecting. Using enemies' momentum against them. He broke a rifle in half. Used one piece as a shield. But they were outnumbered. Khaleth was knocked into a wall. Breath crushed from her lungs. A rebel raised his blade. And Ryan threw himself in the way. Blade met flesh. Ryan grunted, fell to his knees, blood dripping from his side. Khaleth's eyes widened. No. She moved like lightning. 3 strikes. 3 rebels down. She grabbed Ryan, pulled him behind a support beam. "Why did you do that?" she shouted. "You needed help," he said, face pale. "You should have let me take the hit." Ryan looked up at her. "I couldn't." Those 2 words hit her harder than any blade. She stared at him, bruised, bleeding, but still calm, still focused, still him. They hid in the tower's lower level. Khaleth ripped part of her cloak, tied it around Ryan's wound. Her fingers trembled, but she didn't stop. "You're lucky," she muttered. "The blade missed your core." "Wasn't luck," Ryan said with a faint smile. She glared. "Don't joke. You're bleeding." "I'll live." They sat in silence for a moment. Only their breaths and the distant sound of rebels surging. "Why are you like this?" she asked finally. "Like what?" "You don't act like a soldier. You don't panic. You don't get angry. Even when you're hurt, you stay calm." Ryan stared at the ceiling. "Because panic doesn't help. Anger clouds the mind. And fear is just a shadow." She looked at him. "What happened to you, Ryan?" He closed his eyes. "I lost a team once. I gave the wrong order. They died. I didn't. Since then, I decided to never speak unless I'm sure." Khalith didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. But her heart ached for him. As night fell over Xarn 17, the two moved carefully through the ruins. Khalith supported Ryan with one arm. He limped, but didn't complain. Finally, they reached a broken comms tower. Ryan opened a small panel, rewired the circuit, and turned on the beacon. A signal shot through the air, silent, invisible, but powerful. "Now we wait," he said. Khalith nodded. "You saved my life today," she said softly. "You would have done the same." "Maybe," she whispered, "but I didn't expect to care if you got hurt." Ryan looked at her, not with surprise, but with that same calm acceptance, as if he already knew she'd get there eventually. "You're not weak," she said. "Neither are you," he replied. For the first time, Khalith smiled. A real one. Above them, the stars began to shift. A ship entered orbit, friendly, fast, and silent. Rescue had arrived, but something else had too. Something invisible. Between them. Trust. The princess fell tears. The halls of Velinary High Command were silent when Khalith returned. She stepped out of the shuttle with dust still clinging to her armor. Ryan limped behind her, his wound freshly treated but not fully healed. The cold wind of the upper tower brushed past them, as if warning them. Something had changed. Guards didn't salute. Advisors avoided her eyes. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Inside the war chamber, the council sat in a circle of stone and silver. They did not rise when she entered. Their eyes were sharp, cold. "Princess Khalith," said one elder, his voice slow. "You brought the human back." "We completed the mission," she answered. "The rebels were eliminated. She nodded at Ryan, "was essential to our survival." Another elder leaned forward. "So you say." Khalith frowned. "What is this?" The head counselor stood. "This is judgment." A small orb floated into the center. It projected a hologram. Footage from Xarn 17. Her holding Ryan, her speaking softly to him. Even her smile. The chamber whispered. Khalith's eyes narrowed. "You spied on us." "We observe everything," the head counselor said. "It is how we keep control." "Control," she spat, "or fear." "You are speaking like a human now," someone hissed. Khalith stepped back. The words stung, but not because they were insults, because part of her wondered if they were true. That night, she stood alone in the training hall. Blades hung on every wall. The air smelled of sweat and fire, but she didn't train. She stood still, thinking. She had spent her life preparing for war, for command. Emotions were weaknesses, doubts were poison. But now, she remembered the way Ryan had shielded her on the moon. The way he had spoken, not loud, not proud, but honest. His voice still echoed in her mind. "I couldn't let you fall." Why? Why couldn't he? She asked herself the same question now. Why can't I stop thinking about him? The door opened behind her. Footsteps. Quiet. Careful. Ryan. His side was still healing, but he walked without showing pain. "They're going to try something," he said. She didn't look at him. "They already have." "They don't want peace," he said. "They want control." "I know." Silence hung. "So what will you do?" he asked. Khalith finally turned to face him. "I don't know," she said honestly. It was the first time she had ever admitted it. "You were trained to follow them," Ryan said. "But now you've seen what's behind the curtain." She nodded. Then softly, "I was also trained to kill humans." "Why didn't you?" he asked. She looked into his eyes and said the truth. "Because I couldn't look at you and see an enemy." The next morning, a secret order was passed through Velinary Command. Simple, clear, eliminate the human, cause a shuttle malfunction. No evidence, no questions. Khalith found out through her brother, Captain Terran, who whispered it to her during morning protocol. You didn't hear it from me, he said. But if he boards that ship, he won't return. Her blood turned cold. Khaleth stormed into the hangar. Ryan was already walking toward the shuttle. She grabbed his arm, hard. Don't go. He looked surprised. What? They'll kill you. It's a trap. He didn't ask how she knew. He just nodded once. And said, okay. She stared at him. That's it. No fight. No point, he said softly. I trust you. Her heart twisted. She wasn't used to trust. Not real trust. Especially not from someone who had every reason to fear her. That night, she stood in front of the Emperor, alone. He looked down at her like she was a child again. You are my daughter, he said, but if you side with the human, you side against your people. No, she replied. I side against corruption, against fear, and against lies. His face turned stone. You forget your place. No, she said. I finally remember it. Khaleth returned to Ryan's quarters. He sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded. You're quiet, she said. I was thinking, he replied. About what comes next. She sat beside him. Not too close. Not too far. You saved my life, she said softly. You saved mine first. You didn't deserve this. Neither did you. They looked at each other. No words now. Just silence. Just breath. And something unspoken in the space between them. For the first time, she wasn't a princess, and he wasn't a human. They were just two souls in the middle of a galaxy that wanted them to be enemies. And still, they sat together. In the command chamber, red lights flashed. An urgent message from the outer systems had arrived. Rebels weren't just hiding anymore. They were moving. The council prepared for war. But in the shadows of the palace, another decision was being made. Not of war, but of rebellion. And Khaleth stood at its heart. The execution order. The Velinary Council chamber was colder than usual. Not because of the temperature, but because of what was about to happen. Tall shadows stood in a circle, their faces hidden under silver hoods. Their voices calm, but full of power. The human has gone too far, one said. He is dangerous, said another, not with weapons, but with ideas. He has changed the princess, a third added. We must act before others follow. Then, in one final breath, they spoke as one. The human must be executed, publicly. Khaleth was not invited to the meeting. But she knew something had changed the moment she stepped into the palace halls. Soldiers stood straighter. Guards looked away from her. Whispers stopped when she walked past. At first, she thought they feared her. But now, she realized they pitied her. She stormed into her father's private chamber. The emperor sat alone, sipping dark liquid from a crystal cup. He did not look surprised to see her. It's true, isn't it? She said. He didn't answer. You're going to kill him. He placed the cup down. He is human, and you are Velinary. Remember who you are. I remembered, she said. I remember he saved me, protected me, never raised his voice, never lifted a weapon. And yet you fear him more than any enemy. Because he is a symbol. So am I, she snapped. You were, he said coldly, until you let him infect your thoughts. Khaleth stepped back like she'd been struck. Infect. He didn't say inspire. He didn't say change. He said infect. Like love was a disease. Meanwhile, Ryan stood in a silent cell. He wasn't chained. There were no walls, no locks, just energy fields and two guards with plasma rifles. He sat on a bench, hands resting on his knees, breathing slowly. He knew what was coming. Not because they told him, but because he could feel it. The silence was too perfect, the routine too smooth. He had seen it before on other worlds, just before someone vanished. But this time, it was his turn. And still, he felt no fear, only one regret. He didn't say goodbye. Khaleth paced her chambers like a caged tiger. her mind a storm, her heart a war zone. She had survived battlefields, passed every test, earned every scar. But this was something else. This was the feeling of powerless fury. She couldn't go to the council. They had made up their minds. She couldn't beg. Velinari did not beg. But for the first time in her life, she wanted to. Not to save a soldier, not to protect an ally, but to hold on to the only person who ever looked at her not as a warrior, but as a person. The execution was set for sunrise. It would be done in the old arena, in front of Velinari citizens and council alike. A reminder, they said, of what happens to those who challenge the order. Guards came to the cell early. They didn't speak. They just looked at Ryan, then nodded once. He stood on his own, walked on his own, as if he chose this. Khaleth stood in full battle armor at the edge of the arena. Crowds filled the stands. Alien drones hovered above, broadcasting the event live. But her hands trembled under her gloves. Ryan was led to the center. No chains, no fear, just calm eyes. He looked up at her and smiled. That smile broke her. It wasn't a smile of anger or sadness. It was peace, like he had already accepted everything. And still, he smiled only at her. The head counselor stood. His voice echoed across the arena. Ryan Hale of Earth, for the crime of spreading human corruption, for weakening the princess's loyalty, and for challenging the Velinari order. He raised his hand. You are hereby sentenced to death. Ryan said nothing, but his eyes stayed on Khaleth. And in that moment, she made her choice. Before the hand could fall, Khaleth moved, like lightning. In one leap, she landed between the counselor and Ryan. Swords drawn. Crowd gasped. Guards raised weapons. Stand down, she shouted. Princess, what are you doing? Barked the general. She turned slowly, facing the crowd. Her voice shook, but she stood tall. This is wrong. He did not attack us. He did not betray us. He survived our trials, saved our people, and showed more honor than half our council. He turned you against your own kind, the emperor said from above. She looked up at her father and said words no one had ever dared to speak aloud. Maybe we deserve to be questioned. A silence followed, cold, deadly. And then, a shot rang out. Khaleth spun. A council assassin had aimed at Ryan. Her blade flashed. The shot hit the ground. Chaos exploded. Guards rushed the stage. Drones fired warning blasts. But Khaleth grabbed Ryan's arm. Run. I'm not leaving you. You're not. We're doing this together. They moved like one. Through smoke, through screams, through confusion. Out of the arena. And into the unknown. An hour later, deep inside the catacombs beneath the city, Ryan leaned against a stone wall, breathing hard. Khaleth paced nearby, checking a stolen communicator. We don't have much time. They'll find us. Why did you do it? Ryan asked. She looked at him. His face was dirty, tired, bleeding, but still calm. Always calm. Because, she said slowly, every time I looked at you, I saw a better version of myself reflected back. He blinked. That's not what I expected. Me neither, she said. They both laughed. Quiet, tired, real. She sat beside him. And for a long time said nothing more. Because sometimes silence speaks louder than any word. Above them, the emperor stood before the council, his face pale with rage. They have escaped, someone whispered. She's one of them now, another muttered. No, the emperor said. His voice was soft, but full of something darker than anger. She is the enemy now. Final decision. The wind howled through the narrow alleyways of the underground city. Dust and cold air swirled like ghosts around them. Khaleth and Ryan ran, their footsteps echoing off the walls. They had been on the move for hours. No rest, no food, Just escape. Escape from the Empire, from the law, from everything they had known. But they weren't alone anymore. Behind them, the Empire's fleet was already tracking their every move. Ships in the sky, soldiers on the ground. The full weight of the Velinary Empire was coming for them. Ryan glanced at Kalith, whose face was determined but tired. The once proud princess was now a fugitive, her armor dented and scratched from the battles they had fought together. "We can't outrun them forever," Ryan said, his voice low. "We don't need to outrun them," Kalith replied. "We just need to find a place where they can't follow." "And where is that?" he asked. "There's one place," she said, "but it's a risk, a huge one." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "I'm in." They made their way through the catacombs beneath the city, the old tunnels forgotten by most. Centuries ago, they had been used for trade and secret meetings. Now, they were just shadows, holding secrets. After what felt like hours, Kalith stopped. "This is it." In front of them was an ancient door, old but still standing. She placed her hand on it. A soft hum vibrated beneath her fingers. Ryan watched, his eyes sharp. The door opened slowly, revealing a small chamber beyond. Glowing symbols covered the walls, alien language long lost to time. Kalith stepped inside, her movements confident, but her eyes scanning the dark corners. She walked toward a central pedestal in the room. "What is this place?" Ryan asked. "This is the chamber of the Council of the Ancients," Kalith explained. "Before the Velinary Empire, this was the heart of our civilization. Here, decisions were made. Wars were won or lost. But it's not the Council's power I'm after." "What do you want?" Ryan asked, stepping closer. Kalith reached toward the pedestal and lifted a small glowing crystal. It pulsed with soft light. "This crystal holds the Judgment Stone," she said, "the true law of the galaxy, older than any empire." Ryan's brow furrowed. "And what does it do?" "It speaks the truth. Whoever holds it can make the final judgment. They can bind the fate of anyone by law," she explained, turning to face him. Ryan looked at her, confused. "But we're fugitives. How can this help us?" Kalith's eyes flashed with a sudden idea. "It's not just about us. It's about the future of the Empire. This law is older than even the Emperor's power. If we activate it, it can bind the Empire to one truth." "What truth?" Ryan asked, taking a step closer. She turned to him, her face serious. "That you are mine, and I am yours, by galactic law." Ryan's eyes widened. Outside the chamber, the first of the Empire's soldiers had found the entrance. They were closing in. Ryan's heart pounded. "Kalith, this is insane. If you use that crystal, you'll bind the entire Empire to you." "Not to me," she said softly. "To us." She raised the crystal high above her head. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, the air thick with energy. Ryan stepped back, his heart racing. The crystal pulsed with intense light. And then a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice not of flesh, but of pure power, ancient and unwavering. "You who seek judgment, what is your plea?" Kalith swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at Ryan, and then back at the crystal. "I plead for truth," she said, her voice steady. "That Ryan Hale is not our enemy, that he has done no wrong, and that he is bound to me by galactic law." The crystal pulsed again, louder, brighter. The voice returned. "By the ancient laws of the galaxy, your bond is true. It shall be law. You, Kalith, Princess of Velinari, and Ryan Hale, of Earth, are now bound to each other by the ancient code. No power shall undo this bond." A shockwave of energy pulsed outward from the crystal, shaking the chamber. The walls cracked. Dust fell from the ceiling. Kalith closed her eyes, and then everything went still. Above them, the entire city seemed to freeze. The Emperor stood in his private chamber, staring at a screen. His face was pale, his eyes wide. He had felt the change. The law had been activated. In the chamber, Caliph and Ryan were still, the energy from the crystal settling. Caliph turned to Ryan, who was still processing what had just happened. His voice was barely a whisper. "What now?" Caliph smiled, a genuine, soft smile. "Now, we fight for what's ours." Ryan nodded, his own smile forming. "And what's ours?" "The future," she said. "Together." Outside, the soldiers of the Empire moved forward. Until they stopped. Something in the air had changed. The Emperor's voice echoed through the city's speakers, his tone filled with disbelief. "The judgment is made. The princess is bound to the human. No force can change it." Soldiers hesitated. The power had shifted. The ancient law had spoken. Caliph and Ryan stood side by side, the future uncertain, but now theirs to shape. And the galaxy was watching. The Emperor, his hands trembling, stared at the screen. He had lost control. But in the end, the law had chosen a new ruler. Not one of blood or birth, but of truth and love.